Wow, 11 viewers. Look at this guy.
Damn. Oh no.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're good.
Now you should be able to hear all of us.
How important do you guys think Norton antivirus is?
Dude, I never know.
I mean, it's important to have an antivirus, right?
Yeah.
All these antivirus things on my computer, I have no idea whether they're actually doing anything.
Do you think you have a virus yet?
No. But I don't know if that's just me knowing like how to use the internet or if it's like McAfee is actually like my guardian of the computer.
I don't know. I just got a notification that my Norton subscription is running out, and I didn't ever remember getting one, so it must have come with the new computer.
Yeah, it comes stock with most.
Dang, bro. We jumped from 1 viewer to 11 in like 2 seconds.
It's lit.
Hell.
Hello, people.
All right, so we want to kick this off.
Yeah,
Sure.
I mean, I guess since it's Zank's team, he can start.
Ooh, put him on the
mean-
spot. Okay.
I was the number 1 pick, so like Dragapult is a no-brainer, obviously. And other than that, I think my speeches are very good and I have like good momentum, but I feel like I could have gotten more wall breakers. Like I didn't really work around Dragapult that much.
I do like your speed tiers, I think.
Yeah, they are solid.
They're
I
really
also
nice.
agree with the wall breaker thing. I feel like you're gonna have to kind of rely on Virizion setting up and Obstagoon.
is a really good wall breaker, I think.
Yeah, I feel like I have to rely on Obstagoon and Explode.
Yeah,
Xcloud
weirdly
go
enough,
first.
I was gonna say Xbox like one of the better ones on your team.
I honestly don't think it's that much. I feel like between Obstacoon and xCloud, xCloud can basically break anything that's like not a rock or steel. And if you have Guts close combat, you can probably break through most steel types.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
you also have 2 grounds and Salazzle.
I think screens are going to be pretty big for this too. Like getting Klefki and being able to pressure with screens is going to be very nice because then you don't necessarily need to have like some crazy breaker. You'll be able to live hits, chip things down for Dragapult to come in late game and clean up.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. Like I've never used screens really before, so I don't know how I'm gonna use Klefki. But it's gonna be interesting, I think.
I will
Also,
say that
the only
Puffkey's just annoying.
Klefki is very annoying. The only steals with recovery are the birds, and you got Rotom Wash to be able to deal with those. So even if you're just clicking Boom Burst into steals and starting to chip them down, that ends up adding up pretty heavily in the course of the match.
I think another nice thing is things like Rotom and Obstagoon, just their base bolt behind screens is good enough. So like, you put those 2 things behind screens and Rotom can pretty much get up a nasty plot. Or like Obstagoon will be able to get up a
that's
bulk
true.
up.
Yeah, I can see that.
I'd say
I think
one.
overall I'm pretty happy with this team.
Yeah, I would say one problem that you should probably look out for this season is that you have 2 ground resists. You have Rotom Wash and Virizion, and I feel like a lot of this team
Yeah.
is pretty weak to ground. The one good thing about Virizion and Rotom Wash is that they have very different weaknesses as well. So it's not like ground plus one other move will have just perfect coverage across your team.
Oh yeah, I didn't think about that actually, but that's true.
So that's useful having your 2 ground resists have different weaknesses, because like if you bring ground plus grass to beat Rotom Wash, that Virizion will be able to wall that. But I would just say definitely watch out for that in specific matchups.
Yeah.
The only type that like Psychic and Fair are the only things that hit Virizion super effectively that isn't resisted by Rotom Wash. And I can't think of any mon that has both ground and Psychic / Fairy coverage.
At least
Other
not
than
one
a
that's
hit.
gonna hit hard.
Yeah.
I mean,
Maybe
there's like
Earthquake's
Lycanroc
a
Dust.
headbutt on something.
Lycanroc Dust gets like Drill Run, Psychic Feigns, and Play Rough.
But none of them are
yeah,
stab.
yeah.
Those not being stabbed is not so bad.
Yeah, the only thing that's stab that has those coverages would be like Claydol, and you're not really worried about Claydol being an offensive presence.
Yeah, I feel like there's enough to play around with. Like you could go Musharna or most things on, or Rotom Wash. You can probably go multiple things on Claydol.
Yeah,
Because it's
exactly.
the best. But what I do like is Salazzle plus Dragapult for just brainlessly clicking Toxic, because you can't miss Toxic and you can Toxic anything, and then you can just run late game Choice Specs Hex Dragapult.
Yeah, that's another good thing, like
Why
Klefki
I
and
picked
Piloswine.
Klefki.
You pick up Klefki with like spikes and then Piloswine with Stealth Rock, and you force your opponent in a position where they have to worry about getting those off the field. And you come in and start toxicking things while you're like chipping away with stuff like Virizion and Obstagoon. And it's just like your team is very good at setting up Dragapult for a late game win.
Yeah, I think winning the hazard game is going to be pretty big, especially considering the fact that your hazard removal isn't great. I mean,
Yeah.
you have Rotom, you have Klefki.
Does Klefki get
You don't
defog?
really want to run
Yeah,
yeah, it gets defog, but you don't really want to run defog on
Yeah.
Klefki typically.
That's true.
With this kind of team, you usually want to force the opponent to defog by setting up so many spikes and rocks that your opponent just hates it and wants to get them off.
Mhm.
You might also benefit from T-Spike as well, if you can get that on the team later.
Yeah, it was easy, but I kind of got snapped.
Does Salazzle not get toxic spikes?
It doesn't.
No.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, it's a solid team. I mean,
Yeah.
you're definitely
Zinc always ends up with solid teams though.
and
I don't see Zank not making playoffs. That is what I will say.
yeah, I agree.
Yeah, this team is very good. I think I feel like later on down the road, maybe some kind of another offensive presence might need to be picked up. Maybe I'm thinking probably like an offensive ground type, but I don't know exactly how much that helps. It's just kind of what I notice right whenever I look at it, because your offensive ground coverage isn't the best. But Piloswine still hits hard. Like for a tier 4 base 100 attack, Earthquakes are still going to hit things pretty hard. And like I think that might be the only change that might happen down the road. It's just tough whenever you only have 10 mons, which is something else we probably need to make note of, is that we only do have 10 Pokemon. So
Yeah, the format this season, for at least for this division, was 10 Mons and there's 14 players. So
yeah, next was Rogers, right? Yeah.
Yep.
Rogers with his Como behind Auroraville.
That is a mental combination, dude.
God, I don't want to face this team. I don't
It's like
want to.
Como gets Overcoat, right?
I feel like that's normally the ability you don't want to run though. Unless
It's
you're like
definitely
trying
matchup
to
specific, though.
put
Right.
it on sleep.
I don't know. I found a lot of times with Como, there are certain teams where soundproof and bulletproof
Bulletproof don't really matter.
just don't matter. So like on those matchups, he can just run Overcoat and just not take chip from the Hell, because the thing is, with Hell up after a Clinging Souls and like 2 or 3 turns, he will be putting in he'll be doing a lot of damage to himself basically. And you add that with Clinging Scales, lowering your defenses and stuff again, even behind Auroraville, you're like at -1 defense behind Auroraville, the other player's going to be able to do a decent amount of damage to Como, especially with its 4 times weakness to Fairy.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Bro,
and
why does this Mon get like 4 different good setup moves?
I don't
Sword
understand.
Stance, Dragon Dance, Clanging Scales, and Belly Drum.
it gets Autotomize.
Yeah, like
It's so dumb.
Como
Yeah,
Unlimited
that's
is definitely, it's a huge threat.
Roger says, "Be kind" in the chat.
I'm always I'm upset because Rogers isn't on my schedule.
I'm upset because he is on my schedule. I'll trade you.
Another thing that he picked up is Jolteon, which I like because in UGL I have Jolteon and Rain, and the nice thing about Jolteon and Rain is that it can run Weather Ball and hit like ground types and stuff coming in. And he's got Hail, so Weather Ball and Hail does basically the same thing. It still is going to hit those ground types for super effective damage, meaning he's not going to get walled.
It's also going to hit grass
I
types.
didn't notice that. Oh my
It's
goodness.
also going to hit grass types.
Bro, he got that Bolt Beam coverage with Jolteon.
It does. That's really good.
I forgot that it freaking got Weather Ball now.
Having Ninetales as your tier 2, I think, makes Jolteon so much better.
Yeah.
It makes it probably into one of the best tier 4s.
Yeah, Jolteon is, I don't know. Jolteon, like in UGL, Jolteon has been to 2 games and it should have 10 kills. Like the rest of the Pokemon died to Stealth Rocks. Jolteon is a major threat inside weather, especially with the weather that he has, because like KJ said, it's pressuring grass types, which Jolteon can't usually pressure without hidden power. It's pressuring ground types which it can't pressure without hidden power. So you're really kind of, while you're in the hail, you're kind of making the other person doesn't think, well, if I do switch in my ground type here, how much am I taking from Weather Ball? Which means that it opens up a lot of opportunity to Volt Switch out, which I know Rogers is going to like because he's huge on momentum. And if you look at his team, he's got Teleport on Xatu, Volt Switch on Jolteon, Baton Pass on Flareon. And I think that's it. So being able to Volt Switch with Jolteon is going to be really, really big for him. Or at least being able to pressure ground types and kind of scaring them out of switching into a Weather Ball.
Yeah. And honestly, there are a few teams that just have weather innately, and it gets that extra coverage, even if it's not the ice coverage that you want, which looks pretty good. Like versus Nut's Sun team, being able to use the fire move against the potential Venusaur switch in means that can never come in. It actually doesn't look like Nut really has a switch in to Jolteon. I was just scrolling through some of the other teams. Jolteon matches up really nicely versus a lot of them.
Yeah.
Especially with Quick Feet too.
And Quick Feet Jolteon outspeeds most of the weather abusers. I think it outspeeds all the weather abusers in limited, which he has Seismitoad. I know it outspeeds Venusaur, or it can outspeed Venusaur in the sun. But Quick Feet Jolteon a lot of the times has the ability to run Modest too, and having a Modest Pokemon that can switch moves is like super good. The one thing I will say about his Jolteon is he will probably be running Thunderbolt a lot more than Thunder, just because he doesn't have the rain aspect. But even Modest Thunderbolt is going to be doing it. Most things are going to get two-hit KO'd by Jolteon once it's in the right position. And I think that's what this team threatens, is it can put things in the position for Colmo to come in late game and sweep, but you also have to be thinking, when is Jolteon going to come in late game and sweep?
Right, dude. Wow.
We haven't even talked.
I've been sleeping on Jolteon.
We haven't even talked about the fact that he also has Skarmory.
Yeah, he has Skarm and he has Trick Room Teleport and Adelmice, which is huge.
I'm confused about Rogers drafting Skarm, to be honest.
Really?
Yes, because I feel like every time I've talked to him, he doesn't emphasize hazard game, and I feel like people draft Skarmory as like hazard game the Mon. It defogs, it sets Stealth Rock, it sets Spike. I like that he drafted Xatu for himself, because he doesn't personally like setting rocks or anything himself, so having Xatu as that switch in to deny your opponent doing that as well, or at least as a deterrent, is really nice. But I feel like he could have spent a tier 1 slot on something that's better than Skarm. I kind of want to pull up the tiers and see if there's like some offensive steel type that he could have gotten over
Aegislash would have been interesting, especially with the Como bulletproof, like being able to take the shadow balls.
Or
He
like
first
Calm
rounded
Mind
Como,
Jirachi.
though, didn't he? Aegislash was taken by that point.
Yeah, I mean,
on the way back, I think Aegislash was taken. Yeah.
looking at a lot of it, I don't think there were many tier 1s he could have taken. Like, the thing is, Rogers does not like clicking hazards, but hazards do help this team.
Yeah,
So-
but I don't think he's gonna click him.
I mean,
Roger's doing chat.
yeah,
Are you
he's gonna have to force himself into clicking the hazards, but hazards do help out the team because it's kind of the same thing as Zank's team with hazard stacking for Dragapult. Rogers is hazard stacking for Combo or Jolteon or something to come in late game and clean everything up once they get the chip.
So what I'm hearing is you should only run heavy duty boots against these players.
Yeah.
Please don't 6-0 me on Sunday, Rogers. Please don't 6-0 me. Oh my god, this team is...
Are you guys ready to move on so that we can get
let's
through
get-
some of these teams?
Yeah.
So next is Scamp with his relatively hard sand team now.
Yeah, he originally drafted both sand setters.
Yeah.
Or I shouldn't say both. I should say both non-tier 1 sand setters.
He had Hippo and Gigalith.
Then he dropped Hippo for Blastoise.
So Sandrush Dragazole is legal in this league, right?
Yes, that is correct.
And I'm not entirely. I've been on the record saying that Dragazolt's a bad Pokemon, but I've never seen Sandrush Dragazolt in action, so I can't speak for it in Sand. But I am a little curious on how Sandrush Dragazolt does without the Hustle boost, because like I've said before, Dracovish kind of without Strong Jaw, Dracovish doesn't scare me that much. So I'm not sure how Dracozolt does with that, but its coverage is really, really good. So being in Sand and being able to switch moves, it's going to be really good because there's not many switch-ins to just the coverage it has.
I'm curious how just a single bulky ground type on your team would be able to handle it.
Mm-hmm.
So, he was the original person that had Hippowdon, but I feel like Hippo would be able to sit on. Actually, I know people have been running it in OU, and I think they've been running like mix sets with Draco Meteor. That's probably for Hippo. Does that break Hippo well, or
Pretty well. When I had Dracozolt in past leagues, I don't think there was a single week where I brought anything but Life Orb with like mixed Draco Meteor, Fire Blast to be able to hit like grounds and grasses that might be switching into the attack. And for the most part, with a little bit of investment, since he's going to be outspeeding most things in Sand anyways, and he can afford to invest into both attack and special attack, it chips things down pretty damn hard.
Were you using Sandrush though?
I wasn't using Sandrush in most matches. Hustle gave the boost, but I also needed the Hustle boost to for things I didn't outspeed because I didn't have the Sand boost.
Mm-hmm.
But like with a Spike Up, Dragon Pulse into Draco Meteor will kill Seismitoad. That was just the one calc that I know around that. So it can run the special side things.
I think I look at his team and I think, how does he win late game matches?
right? I think he needs a different Sandrush sweeper, because I like Dracozolt as a breaker, but I feel like he should pick up a Stoutland as like the late game win con, or tier 5 Sandslash, which is actually really great.
I feel like pretty bulky Wish Pass teams would actually give this team a pretty hard time. I mean,
I agree.
unless you're running the thing is, even Shell Smash Blastoise doesn't do a ton of damage. Like even after Shell Smash, like it does a good decent amount of damage, but I find a lot of times that Blastoise just misses those KOs just by a little bit after one Shell Smash.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the thing is though, if he is getting hazards up, which I mean he has one of the best hazard setters out there in Ferrothorn, and you have to think about the fact that things are going to be chipped down from Sand too.
Mm-hmm.
So a late game Shell Smash Blastoise, even though it's usually like missing those Okos, like with a little bit of Sand chip, might end up making that difference.
Yeah. And I've said it before about Salt is having a sturdy Pokemon, or Pokemon that could run sturdy on a team where it's not where it's getting chipped by the weather is not fantastic. Because I feel like one of Sock's better sets is a sturdy set. and he's kind of forcing himself into running things like Mold Breaker, or what's the other? What I think it gets one more ability.
Inner Focus.
Inner Focus, yeah. So like,
does that avoid Intimidate this gen?
Yes,
it does. Yep.
Yes. So mine are useful.
Yeah, I think he's going to be depending on. It's interesting. Like I look at this, and I think he's going to be depending on Sandforce, Gastrodon, and Charizard a lot on the special side.
But if you run Sandforce Gastrodon,
then you.
Yeah, it's like some water types might be able to.
Yeah,
really
a water
well
type would just run through this team at that point.
Like you rely too heavily on Ferrothorn for that.
I mean, you have 2 really good water resists even outside, or you have 3 mons that resist water even outside of Water Absorb Gastrodon, and Blastoise, Pharaoh, and Dracozolt.
Mm-hmm.
But do you really want to switch your Dracozolt into a water move?
Especially when most water types get ice coverage anyways.
Oh, I was thinking Scald. Like,
yeah, even Scald.
I think that's the biggest thing. Like when I've seen Dracozolt run, the biggest thing is you burn it, and then it's kind of just like, it doesn't really do nearly as much. Like you burn it early game, and then you just get something in that's going to be able to outspeed it, so that Bolt Beak isn't completely obliterated.
I mean,
still.
Even like Ferrothorn, you don't want to continuously switch in Ferrothorn on Scalds, because a lot of times you get burned on it, and either your leftovers become pointless, or you're forced to get some leech seeds up, or you're just getting chipped down by that burn for the rest of the game.
Or you just get subbed on, and then it screws the rest of the team.
Yeah, and you can't break it.
Honestly, I think. Oh, go ahead, Taga.
No, you normally don't bring Sandforce Gastrodon unless you're versus a team that doesn't have a good bulky water to be able to scald you. But having that option is nice.
Yeah, that's the only reason why I brought it up. I think having, like you said, having the option is very nice. I do think that because this team is very physical, another cleric of some point, like, of some type would be nice. I think Clef, like, as good as Clef is, it never wants to be locked into a role. And I think a lot of times, like, you're not necessarily going to be able to bring something like setup Clef, especially if we look at the last 2 teams. Like, they're going to want to be statusing things. They're going to want to be like getting toxics or burns, etc. And so,
Vaporeon was picked up.
Vaporeon was picked up.
Vaporeon would be really nice on this team.
Yeah, but I think like something else to be able to support the rest of the team would be really nice, and it would also take Clef out of that always needing to be like wish passing or a cleric or something like that.
Yeah, that's true.
I feel like this Clef is pretty locked in.
With what we were talking about switching into Scalds and stuff, like I feel like Clef is gonna want to run Aromatherapy or Heal Bell or whatever, like a lot of the time.
Mm-hmm.
So you're stuck between running Wish Protect, Aromatherapy, Moonblast, Wish Protect, Teleport, Moonblast, some kind of Calm Mind, Life Orb set. I feel like there's a lot of pressure on Clefable on this team.
Right. Good thing is it's not a rocker, at least.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You got Pharaoh Gigalith. But yeah, Wish past Cleric kind of Clef. I feel like you want to be able to run a Calm Mindset without as much fear.
Yeah, I would say with a 10-mon draft, you don't want your sets to become super predictable, I guess is the word.
Yep.
But next we have Poppy with his Rillaboom Starmie, super hyper offense team.
I'm a little confused about why he wanted Rillaboom on this team. Like, I get grassy terrain helps with a lot of different things, but like there's a lot of things that can fit on a grassy terrain team, but I don't feel like he built his team much around the grassy terrain at all.
I think he took Rillaboom just for the offensive presence of Rillaboom, and I don't know if you were in the call, Lambo. I know that KJ and Tago were both in the call, but Rillaboom is a Pokemon that I've really liked using. But it was hard for me to justify taking it. Like, if Poppy wasn't going to take it, he did pick before I did, but if he wasn't going to take it, then it probably would have fell to me. And it was hard for me to justify taking it first, because I feel like exactly what happened to him is what I was saying would happen to me. You take Rillaboom, and it's really hard to get the stuff behind Rillaboom to support it in a draft format. because in a draft format, I find a lot of times that pure grass types offensively just aren't that great. A lot of teams will have a ton of grass resistances and not many grass weaknesses, and then it forces Rillaboom into running kind of a bulky pivot. But if you don't have the team behind it to support that, then you're kind of screwed on the rest of your draft. So taking it first and not having a great plan behind it, or the plan behind it gets sniped, really hurts it. And I think that's kind of what happened to Poppy, because if you look at it, I mean, Steelix wants to run Earthquake, Rillaboom kind of hurts that. Darmanitan, one of its best coverage moves is Earthquake. I don't know if it gets high horsepower. I don't think it does. But again, Rillaboom hurts that, and it's just like I agree that grassy terrain kind of hurts this team more than helps it, because even Toxicroak, like sure, Toxicroak and Manectric and Darmanitan, and they're like getting reduced damage from opponents' Earthquakes, but all it takes is Earth Power to cover all of those. Like Toxicroak, Steelix, Manectric, Darmanitan all die to Earth Power.
Yeah,
I agree.
Dig as a move that, as a ground move that isn't hurt by grassy terrain.
Wow.
Yikes.
One thing that really confuses me about this team is the fact that he has two of the premier wish passers on this team with nothing that really is gonna take a wish.
Outside, yeah, basically Steelix
and Rillaboom. That's kind of it. Everything else is like really frail. They're kind of just gonna be using wish for their own, like for themselves.
And that's another thing. I mean, Rillaboom is decently bulky, especially in terrain. But when people are prepping for Rillaboom, you can expect for people to have the coverages for it on their Pokemon. So getting Rillaboom in to get a wish back up, a lot of the times I feel like it's going to be a little harder than what it seems at first.
Yeah, I don't know. I see Sylveon coming here a lot of times, like as a defensive mon here, and I mean, knowing Poppy, he's gonna play it offensively anyway. Like that's just how he plays. But I think if you're gonna have a mon like Sylveon that you're gonna take and you want to play it more offensively, why not take something like Gardevoir, which is in the same tier?
And it's
to me,
still
I feel
open, right?
I feel like I see the same 5 or 6 mons coming every time. I feel like it's got to be Noivern, Steelix, Sylveon, Starmie, Rillaboom. Like, I don't see him bringing much outside of that.
I think water types would also be a problem, because you have like water ice coverage, and it looks like it's hitting a lot of stuff super effectively.
Yeah, I mean, if the opponent is playing around Grassy Glide, there's not much to worry about on this team if he's not bringing Manectric. You only have to worry about playing around Grassy Glide at that point.
I think we shouldn't necessarily say that, because Darmanitan still hits like a truck. Like, Darm still, there are some water types that are still taking big damage from Darm. Like,
Yeah, a lot of them. Almost any like big bulk water is going to be taking a shit ton of damage.
Yeah, so I definitely think that it's gonna be. I mean, it's gonna be harder for him. He's gonna have to play around it, but. And the other thing I will say is like Toxicroak being able to switch in on water types is nice. Like the dry skin, like with dry skin giving that water immunity is gonna be really nice.
I just feel like from the time that I've known Poppy, I feel like this is the kind of team that's going to frustrate him, and he's going to want to make a lot of trades.
I think that this team is a very revenge killing team. Like, it seems to me like he would get a kill, somebody would switch in and either get a kill or do a lot of damage to him. He'd have to switch out, the other person gets momentum, and it's just a really back and forth kind of battle between him and whoever he's facing, because his team, outside of like Umbreon, Steelix, Sylveon, even Steelix on the special side doesn't take hits too well, but outside of those three, he's not taking a lot of hits. So once something on his team claims a kill, his team isn't super fast enough to not get speed crept by other things outside of Noivern and like Starmie. But things like Toxicroak, Rillaboom, Darmanitan, like those kinds of Pokemon can get outsped by other offensive threats that just come in and pressure those out.
He likes that though. he likes the like prediction heavy games where he's gonna make the decision to call your play and then get you.
Yeah. And
That's
he
just how he
does.
plays.
He
Wants
does,
the hard-
but 11 weeks of that, you're bound to make a lot of misreads or mistakes there. I think mainly the thing that would help him out the most is just probably like KJ said, an offensive fairy in Sylveon's place. I think that helps him put a lot of pressure on other teams.
Yeah, I think that's the thing. He just needs to, like, with how this team is set up, it feels like it should just be a heavy offensive team where he's not really trying to worry about, like I said, passing wishes or anything, because I don't know, it just, his defensive mons are all around the same speed tier, and
they're all kind of weak to the same things. Like, you look at Umbreon and Glaceon, they share some weaknesses. Sylveon and Glaceon share weaknesses.
Umbreon, Glaceon, and Steelix all share
a weakness. Steelix and Glaceon both share a fire weakness, along with Rillaboom. So, I mean, I would say the defensive synergy that's on this team is not the greatest. It seems like you can kind of just spam fighting fire and ground type moves on it.
Lucky for him, and Fernape's not in the format.
True. All right. So next we got Big Boy Lambo.
What's up? It's your boy. Welcome to my YouTube channel. I was absolutely frustrated with my team last season. By the end of the season, because I got a really strong offensive core, and then just everything else was passive and annoying, and that just let people set up on my team. So this time I was like, I want everything to have an offensive defensive role on this squad. I don't want anything to be setup bait. And I would say, like, even if you look at my team, probably two most passive mons are Bronzong and Weezing, and I feel like they can break subs, and they can still, like, you could run an offensive set of either of them and do well. So there's far less defensive synergy on this team than I'm ever used to, but I liked it because I got 0 first and I think Mamo second, and I was like, that's just a crazy offensive core that very few teams could ever switch into without just like incredible predictions. Keldeo, another wall breaker that is very strong, and then I decided to get P2 as kind of a catch-all wall because it can basically run the set to take hits from any team, FizzDef or Spadef, and then the rest were just supposed to be support for the rest of the team, getting rocks and T-spikes and defog support. So that was my idea behind it.
Man, Porygon 2 in Lambo's hand scares the living hell out of me.
Yeah, and the approach of making sure your defense Pokemon have some kind of offensive presence in this draft specifically is really smart, because any kind of passive Pokemon on a 10 team or 10 Pokemon draft, I feel like, especially with 14 teams, hurts that team more than it helps it.
Right, and I feel like it can just feel like dead weight, and sometimes you're forced to bring it because it's got like a good typing or ability for the matchup or something. But if your opponent can take advantage of that and abuse that passivity, then it just kind of screws you. So I was like, I want everything to have the ability to actually threaten Pokemon out and be scary.
I really like the Drampa pick as well, to be honest. I think it's one of the best mons that was available in Tier 4. I think the option to like switch in, take 2 hits, get into Berserk range, and blow something up makes it really valuable as well.
And I mean, it gets things like Roost, doesn't it? I think it gets Roost.
Roost.
It gets Roost.
Glare. Like, I know one of Lambo's favorite ways to play is status spam, and that's something that this is definitely going to be able to do for the team.
I did want to ghost type just for like status spam, because some teams just lose some people just don't think about T-spikes when they're drafting, and I always think about T-spikes when I'm drafting because I just love setting them up, and they just invalidate some teams.
Yeah,
so
a lot of teams even one layer just screws them.
What was that?
I said a lot of teams, even just one layer of T-spikes can screw them the whole game.
Yeah, exactly. So I try to emphasize that. Drampa is also my only real Trick Room abuser, and I have 2 really good Trick Room setters, so that's actually something that I've thought about that I might...
Oh yeah, I can see that.
Yeah, I might want to make a trade to abuse Trick Room a little more.
I'm just thinking about like being able to teleport into Drampa or just hard pivoting into Drampa from Bronzong. Like that's because yeah, if you set Trick Room, hard pivot into Drampa, they put you into Berserk range. Now you have 3 turns of a Trick Room sweeper.
Yeah, I also got like
got 3
Trick Room
kills.
teleport too.
Yeah, Trick Room teleport is also just incredibly scary.
I think that's the theme that we saw in a lot of teams too, is kind of making sure they picked up some kind of Trick Room user. I think because did Zank have Trick Room? Zank had
Moshana.
Yeah, Zank has Musharna. Rogers has Zatu. Scamp does not have Trick Room.
But he has a good Trick Room answer in Gigalith.
Yeah. And then Poppy has Steelix, but the rest of his team kind of loses to Trick Room. And then Lambo has Trick Room Teleport in P2. And that was something in this draft. In limited decks specifically, finding speed is ridiculously hard. So Trick Room is a pretty viable archetype for a lot of teams, and it's a pretty common theme we'll see on a lot of teams.
Yeah, definitely true.
I think where my team lacks is definitely if I don't play aggressive enough and make the right predictions, though, because I feel like my defensive backbone kind of lacks. Like everything has a defensive and offensive purpose, but there's not like a whole ton of recovery or super amazing switch-ins. Like maybe it can switch in once or twice, but outside of like P2, a lot of things might be dying after a few switch-ins. So I definitely have to push the pace of the game with this team.
I think P2 is a really nice kind of catch-all switch-in unless your opponent is threatening a knockoff. A lot of this team doesn't like knockoff.
But having Keldeo is nice. Like, if you're going to be potentially, like, one of the nice things is that Keldeo switches into a knockoff, and then all of a sudden, physically offensive Keldeo is a threat. As soon as it's at +1, it's immediately a threat. It gets decent physical coverage. I mean, it's not something you're going to run every week, but if you're really pressed against something and you're thinking, okay, well, in prep, you're thinking, okay, Porygon's almost definitely getting knocked off here, but I have to bring it, then being able to make those hard reads on knockoffs and get Keldeo set up is definitely solid.
Keldeo without an item even at +1 does not strike me as all that threatening.
Yeah, so this is why I originally had Thwacky on the team, because nothing on this team really wants to lose its item, because they all appreciate like leftovers recovery, or they all appreciate heavy duty boots, and Thwacky setting grassy terrain would have been that saving grace for a lot of these mons. But yeah, again, I think I really just have to play in such a way that I just push the pace of the game, because with knockoff, the end game for my team, or the long game for this team, is much weaker due to the presence of knockoff and the lack of recovery on some of these mons.
Mm-hmm.
That's understandable. I mean, you also have something that is like one of the hardest things to switch into in all of the format in Mamoswine. Like Mamoswine, I would not be surprised if Mamoswine's like top 10 in kill leaders by the end of the season.
Yeah, during draft we were looking at the teams. We were looking at the teams and just thinking Mamoswine beats everything on my team except like 2 things. And even those 2 things aren't taking earthquakes very well.
Yeah, we even had some people that were trying to counter draft Mamoswine. We'll get to that though.
Who the hell were they? Who were they?
I actually stole one of the best Mamoswine counters in Bronzong.
Yep, that is true.
But I mean, Mamoswine gets knockoff, so I mean, even if you have Bronzong, it's not even that great of a counter. You got to run like Colbur.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, you guys want to move on?
Yeah. All right,
Yeah.
let's get to Rick's team.
Speaking of teams that get 10-0'd by Mamoswine, yeah, I will say my Mamoswine matchup is not the best, but offensively, I think I can probably pressure it. I'm pretty happy with my team. I'm not gonna lie. I think this is one of the times I come out of a draft saying I like what I ended up with. I've done that one other time, and that was in NPAA. So I first picked Incineroar because, like I was saying, even if Rillaboom was to fall to me, I probably would have still been first picking Incineroar, because there was nothing in tier 1 that I was struck by thinking, okay, this is a tier 1 that I really need to grab. And that reflects in my draft because I still only have one tier 1. I picked up 4 tier 2s. So I first picked Incineroar, not knowing really what my second pick was going to be. And then when it came back, I knew at the time I was planning for Slowbro and Wigglytuff, because I came up with like this Incineroar, Slowbro, Wigglytuff defensive core. Thinking, okay, Incineroar takes the Psychic type, well, also adding in Gengar. Incineroar takes the Psychic type attacks from Gengar, takes the Ghost type attacks from Gengar. Wigglytuff also takes Ghost type attacks from Gengar. The Incineroar would take Dark type attacks, so does Wigglytuff. Slowking, what I have now, what was supposed to be Slowbro, but now it's Slowking, takes the Fighting type attacks, the Water type attacks. I just think overall, the one thing I don't think I covered that well defensively, I will say, is Ground types. Ground types I don't have many resistances to. I have 1 immunity and 1 resistance. So like ground types do give my team a pretty rough time. But at the same time, I think that I can keep the pressure up long enough to be able to deal with those. That's just gonna be something I'm gonna have to deal with, and if I need to make any changes, I'll make some changes. But I kind of wanted to do the same thing that Lambo was saying about making sure that my defensive Pokemon had some kind of offensive presence, which is why I took Incineroar first, because like Incineroar defensively is very, very good, but it also doesn't have switch-ins. Like, things don't want to switch in and take a knockoff. Things don't want to switch in and take a Flare Blitz or Earthquaker. Even a U-turn from this thing is going to chip down teams a lot. And then covering that with Gengar, being able to, let's just say, like, I don't know, a fighting type comes in on Incineroar, I can go into Gengar and pressure a lot with ghost moves or psychic moves or whatever. Also pivoting out of Incineroar into things like Diggersby, for example, I feel like it's pretty good. Diggersby just puts a lot of pressure on most of the teams that I saw in this draft. I know my week 1 matchup, Diggersby kind of just runs through the team. Like, Diggersby just doesn't have many switch-ins, and I got
strong.
Yeah, I got a couple. I was sniped a couple of times. I was actually sniped, like I said, on Slowbro. Got sniped on Flagon by a certain person who's very mean. But getting sniped on Flagon, I will say, was probably the thing that hurt my team the most, because it was what was closing my speed gap, because I have this big speed gap between 110 and 90. And like, Mr. Mime is base 100, but to be honest, I don't know how many games Mr. Mime comes to, so I don't think teams really have to worry about that too much. So it goes from 110 to 90, but then everything after that was really solid speed tiers. So if I would have been able to get that base 100 and like a higher tier, that would have been pretty nice. But when I got sniped on Flygon, that forced me to take Drud and Diggersby, which were originally Flygon and Savali. But Drud, I kind of picked up, and like, I've been joking around saying watch out for Banded, Drudagon, and Trick Room. But like, honestly, Trick Room teleport into Drudagon is not a bad strat with this team at all. Drudagon can do a ton of damage to a lot of teams.
I think even more threatening than that would be like a Sheer Force Life Orb Drudagon.
Yeah,
where you're able to switch up moves and just hit stuff.
Yeah. And then,
but
I also got Serena. What's up?
I was gonna say, if you were looking for Flygon, then you're welcome that your only rocker would have been Wigglytuff. So you're welcome on this night.
I mean, yeah, but everyone knows me. I don't click rocks that much, which is actually not true. I've been clicking rocks a good bit here recently, a lot more than what I used to. But Druddigon was also on this team. I've used 2 Pokemon before. One was Rotom Fan, which I used for like 3 games in GBF, and then the other one was Druddigon, which I used for 6 games in TBA. And Drud had the same set every week. It was Glare, Stealth Rocks, and 2 coverage moves every single week. And that was basically because that was what my team was like for. I had double Glare plus Jirachi and Mega Gyarados. So like it helped out there a lot. Whereas here, I think Druddigon actually does very well offensively, and I don't just have to glare things, because like what really am I paraflinching with this team outside of like Air Slash on Rotom Fan? So
You gotta paraflinch that Clefable.
yeah. The only thing I can do with Drud is kind of like glare things and then Iron Head them or Rock Slide them. But the rest of my team doesn't really pair well with a paraflinch strategy. So glare's kind of nice for speed control, which is another thing I made sure to do with my team. Is when I did get sniped on Flygon when I was making my backups, I was like, okay, now I need to figure out how I'm going to cover my bad speed tiers, because after that snipe there wasn't a lot of speed left. So I kind of made sure, I was like, I needed to grab Drud now, because Drud at least gives me glare, and I can pair that with the T-Wave on Rotom Fan, which was already on my draft plan at that point. But glare, like a lot of things just don't want to switch into Druddigon basically because of glare, especially fast Pokemon that want to pressure it out. And then I also made sure to pick up like priority with Lucario, priority with Diggersby. And then I think those are only other 2 priorities. And then like I said, I had the Trick Room with Slowking. But overall I'm happy with the draft. I do wish I had some more ground type coverage, like not coverage, but like ground type, being able to switch into ground types a little bit better. But I think that's just something that's going to hurt me all season long.
Yeah, I mean, I think you covered a lot of it. I do think that glare plus hazard spam status spam with Rotom Fan for Gengar with Hex is going to be very, very nice.
Mm-hmm. And even Will-O-Wisp on Incineroar and stuff like that.
I love the Incineroar synergy too. Big fan of that.
It's a well-built team. Good job.
Would definitely get another ground immune / resist.
Yeah, and that's why Flygon was going to be so good, because I had Levitate. It was such a dream that was crushed. But
yeah, then you probably had to go for like a tier 5 rocker.
Mm-hmm.
You probably would have went maybe double ground and taken like a Sand Slash or a Marowak or something like that. That could have been.
I don't remember what my tier 5 was at that point. My other tier 5.
Oh, it was masculine.
No. When I had Flygon on the team, it wasn't Basculin. Basculin was a pickup after Flygon was taken. Then Basculin got sniped. Imagine Basculin getting sniped. Goodness gracious.
It's back available. Basculin is an option.
I don't want your Basculin. Yeah, well, actually, both Basculins are available now, but I'm not wasting a transaction on picking up Basculin. But
Oh,
man.
it's so sad that both Basculins are available.
Does anyone have anything to say
I will
about
also
Rick's
say.
team? Oh, I think Rick does.
Oh, I was gonna say. I also say I had to work very hard to get this Lucario.
This man tried to. This man basically helped Nut plan to make sure that he got Lucario.
Yeah, because I texted Nut. All right, so we're like the last round. We're like the last round of coming back up to me, and Nut was the only person that I thought would snipe Lucario. So I messaged him. I was like, "Hey, what are you taking? I need to know what you're taking." And he told me he was taking Lucario. And then I was like, "You know, there's Cobalion." I was like, you know, the Cobalion speed helps your team a lot more. But then I actually got to looking at his team, and I talked him into making some other picks that I felt like helped his team a lot more, so I could get Lucario, because I really needed Lucario on this team. If he would have sniped Lucario, he's the one that snipes Slowbro. So if he sniped Lucario too, I might have been screwed, because I would have taken Cobalion, because Lucario fits this really cool niche in my team of stopping. I feel like stopping dark type spam because of Justified. You don't want to spam too many dark type moves while Lucario is still alive. So it keeps things like Slowking, Gengar, what else? Mr. Mime, It keeps things like that a little bit safer when the opponent knows, okay, Lucario can switch in here and take the start pulse or this knockoff or whatever and get an attack boost and then run through my team. So, but yeah, that I just wanted to put that little. I worked hard for the Lucario.
Oh man, that's funny. All right, should we go to Nuts team then?
Yeah. Speaking of didn't pick Lucario, this team is kind of interesting.
It is. It's very interesting.
I hate Mimikyu.
Nut loves it. What? He's had it in almost every season.
He told me that if he doesn't get Clefable, he can only draft Mimikyu as a fairy.
So ridiculous.
I don't know. I feel like he didn't get like Darmanitan. He didn't get Charizard.
I feel like he got sniped in a couple places.
I don't know. I liked the Firewater Grass synergy, and I like Heliolisk on the team a lot.
Yeah, same. I like Mimikyu too, to be honest.
But Torkoal just kind of gets worn down. You know?
The nice part about this is, though, I don't think he necessarily has to bring Sun all the time. I don't know if he will. He probably will. But, like, this is why, I mean, he was talking to me about the Slowbro Venusaur pick, and he wanted Slowbro, and then Laser almost talked him out of it, and I was just like, yeah, but Slowbro Venusaur synergizes really well, especially outside of Sun.
So it was KJ's fault I was sniped.
I like Slowbro Venusaur, and then Torkoal makes sense to me. Mm-hmm. I suppose Heliolisk in Sun also makes sense to me. Mm-hmm. But then I don't know, like the rest of the team just doesn't really.
I can see that.
He had a lot of holes in his team very, very late draft. I mean, we're talking like last 3 rounds. He still didn't have a steel type. He still didn't have a ground type, and he still didn't have a flying type.
Right. I like the Silvally pick for that reason.
Mm-hmm. I also really like the Palossand pick, but like having water compaction in Sun makes Palossand incredibly bulky because those water hits aren't going to be hitting, like those water moves aren't going to be hitting as hard, and he's going to be able to recover off the damage, and Palossand's just going to be able to sit there and be really annoying, and it's still reasonably threatening on the like offensive side. So I think that's a pick. I don't know how I feel about Scyther. I don't know. I'm sorry, Zach. Scyther in tier 3, it wasn't like I'm just gonna have to improve.
It's a goat though.
I think Scyther in tier 3 is very much deserved, but I just don't know how I feel about it on this specific team.
Yeah, because when your spinner is weak to rocks and then Swoobat is your flying type,
yeah.
Like Silvally is gonna be forced into a defog roll a lot of the times.
I feel like a lot of teams are gonna run heavy duty boots Scyther anyway, but I'm just wondering like what Scyther offers this team, because I feel like running a Sun team, what does Scyther break for you that you really need it to break? I feel like Scyther is going to be the defogger a lot of times. It's going to be like heavy duty boots, defog Scyther, but then it's got some weaknesses overlapping with Venusaur as well.
Yeah, it has weaknesses. It has overlapping weaknesses with both Venusaur and Torkoal. So like, when do you want to bring it?
Right. Yeah. Like this team is super weak to rock. Mm-hmm. Just rock type attacks, you heavily rely on Palossand for it, or just some Silvally type.
Mm-hmm. Slowbro switches into a lot of rock types pretty well, and then is able to teleport into Venusaur to threaten them in the Sun. My issue is more dark types, actually. The only dark type resistance is Silvally Fairy.
You can name so many different types that he would have trouble with.
Yeah.
Like the fact that we can name multiple different types. Like, where is the ghost resist? I guess you have Heliolisk.
Mm-hmm.
And whatever Silvally type you need to run that week. Which is something we should also notice. If there is a type that he's kind of struggling with 1 week, you can run a Savali type to help cover it, but at that point your Savali typings kind of become, your opponent knows, okay, he gets wrecked by ground types if he doesn't bring Savali grass, or he gets wrecked by rock types if he doesn't bring Savali rock or whatever. So you don't want to, you don't want your Savali to become predictable.
I feel like he can use the Scyther / Mimikyu spots for trades for something that wraps this team together a little better.
Yeah. A better ground resist and then a dark type to be able to resist dark and ghost.
What about swapping Mimikyu for something like Hatterene? That stops rocks being set up. Like, that deters people from setting up rocks. It gives a trick room option to the team with things like Palisand and Torkoal, as well as it being a very good mon in trick room itself.
One thing Shaded wanted us to mention is in his words, sneaky copycat and eject pack Torkoal. Copycat Mimikyu and eject pack Torkoal.
Yeah, I feel like Mimikyu just still doesn't hit very hard.
But at least it's fast. It doesn't have to use the shadow sneak.
Yeah, but then it'll get the shell smash from the Torkoal after it clicks copycat.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it clicks copycat, it gets the shell smash.
No, you copycat overheat.
With an SD, just like doesn't break most things.
Copycat overheat in the sun.
In Nat decks, that's true, but in limited decks, I can actually see some teams where it will be able to run through like that.
No, Mimikyu in limited decks is actually a lot scarier than what people give credit for. Because I mean, I'm also one that says Mimikyu needs a sword stance to kind of hit teams. But I do know that in NSL, Mimikyu was like 4th on the kill leaderboard. Like Mimikyu is definitely a threat. Which the guy that had Mimikyu also had Komo, which was the kill leader in that league. So like people were kind of running Komo calcs and not worrying about Mimikyu calcs, which I think is important because on this team there's not something I really think, okay, I need to run these calcs before something else. So people are going to be able to run Mimikyu calcs, but if he could get something to pressure things pretty heavily, then Mimikyu would be opened up to do a lot of damage to a lot of teams.
I prefer Crocodile over Mimikyu personally.
Yeah, that would
be nice.
That would
I
fit.
think it looks good on this team.
I think Aromatese is still open.
No, it's not.
No, it's not.
It's not.
on the
Oh,
next team
yeah,
that
somebody took it. I was gonna say he could take Crook in tier 2 and Aromatese in tier 4, but
Trust me, there's no good low tier fairies left.
nope.
You'll see that. You'll see that when we get to my team.
I will say another Pokemon that I find annoying. I think to me the most annoying Pokemon is Heliolisk. I don't know why. I just hate matching up with Heliolisk. I always seem to have issues with it.
I feel like it's a mon that definitely has good matchups in most games. Like Heliolisk is a mon I look at and I say, okay, well, if he's bringing Sun, then Heliolisk is solid. If he's not bringing Sun, then Dry Skin is very good, and it still gives him a water immunity to cover a few different things.
Yeah, and he took the Heliolisk counter.
Yeah, if he's playing the Sand team, then well, he gets to run Sandvale.
Like
So.
he took the Pokemon that is immune to both of Heliolisk's stabs.
That is true.
Alright, so
one
next.
thing about Heliolisk in the Sun is it's not really going to be able to run Life Orb because otherwise it'll be losing, like, it'll only be able to fire off 4 attacks max. And so if you're facing it and in general need to stall out Sun turns, have Heliolisk in front of you, I think it's really easy to just click Protect. Scout would move, he's going for Solar Power. Pretty easy to assume that he's going to be choiced into either Scarf or Specs, and then switch into your corresponding counter.
Yeah, or even after 2 moves, just some kind of priority.
Yeah. You take the solar power damage whether you attack or not, too, right?
Yeah, exactly. So
Yeah,
you're
so-
getting that residual chip.
That gets applied at the end of the turn, though, right?
Yeah.
So if you Volt Switch, do you still take the damage?
No.
No.
Okay, I didn't think so.
Oh, very cool.
So I mean, at least that's good. Like he'll be able to pivot out and
Yeah.
Mhm.
And I think
Yeah,
it also gets Baton Pass
damage.
if he's worried about being blocked with ground types.
The other thing is one of the things that Heliolisk likes is being able to use water moves to threaten ground types, but you're reducing that damage in the sun.
Yeah, that's true.
Anyways, just a few things that popped into mind at the end. We can move on to the next person if you guys want.
Okay.
Next is
team
Grum.
This is the
Grum
team.
didn't draft a ground immune. I'm playing in week 1.
Yeah.
Grum, don't watch this. I just realized it.
Yeah. Grum's team is very scary. The 3 things that, like, at the end of the draft, or close to the end of the draft, the 3 things that I noticed about Grum's team: he didn't have a fire type, he didn't have a ground type, and he didn't have an electric type.
Yeah, so he doesn't have a ground immune, and his only electric immune is Wish Cash. But like, otherwise, I do like some of the synergies that are going on between mons. Like Scizor plus Milotic plus Roserade plus Snorlax is a very scary combination. I do like the look of that.
Yeah.
I think
He slotted in a little bit of speed as well with like Lycanroc and then Rapidash Mienshao.
I think
Mew's
where
also
he kind of hurt his team, like you were talking about, he didn't have a fire, like he has a lot of types missing on his team, is he has a lot of mono types on his team. So he has like Snorlax, Lycanroc, Rapidash, Mew, Mienshao, Aromatisse. Half of his team is a mono type Pokemon.
Right.
Actually, I think over half of his team.
More than half, because
Yeah.
Milotic, well,
Yeah, Milotic, that's the one I missed. So six of the 10 Pokemon he has is mono type, meaning that he's missing out on a lot of stab coverage or just immunities altogether.
His only flying resist is Lycanroc Midday,
which is
and that's not a flying resist.
Yeah.
And he doesn't have any ground resistances either.
Yeah, because
probably not having any ground immunities.
Because Roserade is neutral. It's a good thing that his steel type is neutral, but I mean, Scizor doesn't want to switch in on too many earthquakes.
For sure.
Milotic on this team is forced into switching into a lot of things, I think.
Yeah, I agree.
Like, you're forcing Milotic to switch into the flying type moves, you're forcing it to switch into the ground type moves, you're forcing it to switch into fire type moves. It's just, even poison typing on this team, once like Scizor's gone, poison moves against this team aren't the greatest thing to have spammed on it. So
I also think one of the things I really see is, as versatile as Mew is, it's locked into some roles. Like Mew is the best defogger on this team, and it's almost the only defogger, because I mean, the way that we were kind of talking about everything else, it seems like Scizor is going to have to be defensive in a lot of scenarios with this team, which means defensive, like, that helps Mew a little bit, because defensive Scizor can have a slot for defog, but I think Mew operates best in a role where it doesn't have to be locked into a role. So I think Mew as a hazard setter and Mew as hazard control on this team is going to be more important than Mew being able to like set up and potentially clean or sweep or anything like that.
yeah, because I mean, funny enough, Mew's the best stealth rocker on this team, as well as defogger. So
Right. Yeah, I feel like in a lot of matchups you need Whiskash just because of its typing, and if your team is reliant on Whiskash, there's a problem.
what do you mean? Wishcast gets DD. This man's gonna 6
I do like
win.
some of the topics, but I just don't like how it finishes off. And I like a lot of these mons individually, but
Together.
this back for me.
I know he did get sniped. Originally, he wanted Salazzle. Salazzle was something that he wanted. He didn't obviously get it, but Salazzle was a mon that he was looking at for a while. And then he was also looking at Centiskorch at one point, I think.
Didn't have enough.
This
This is the team that I like Scytheron more.
Ooh, yeah, that would be
The Scyther Scizor combo?
Yeah, bro, father and son.
The world isn't ready for that. So who Who would you replace though? Because I feel like Roserade, Snorlax are like really key members of this team.
Yeah.
I think maybe filling out the cores a little, like the free picks a little differently. So maybe instead of Scizor, taking something like Corviknight or Skarmory, and
Or
then
even instead of taking a tier 2 and tier 4, you might can take a tier 3 and.
well, that's what I was thinking. I was thinking dropping, like taking a tier 3 and another tier 4, dropping the Enchao, like basically saying, okay, you have, instead of Scizor, you have the one of the steel flying types. And then, yeah, taking something like Scyther as a tier 3, and then getting a fighting type in tier 4, like a Hitmontop or something like that, like Hitmonchan, one of those. Because at the time, like, those things were available. So I think that might have helped ground things out, like, even things out a little bit, because that would have given Mew more flexibility with having something like Skarmory or Corviknight as a defogger, having a Rapid Spinner, like, hit one of the Hitmons, and then you also have Scyther just in case. That gives Mew so much more flexibility.
Yeah, I can see him and Rogers trading Scizor and Charm. And then I think he just needs another ground type. And then could run like a pretty bulky team with Snorlax as a win condition, and definitely a strong hazard presence from Roserade plus Skarm. Could be really cool for me.
Yeah, and I will say in this kind of draft, I think taking a high tier fighting type to me is really tough because there's so many good low tier fighting types. So he definitely, I think he could have, because Passimian actually went undrafted. Like Tago has it now, but it went undrafted. And I think dropping Mienshao or something like Passimian, they fit similar roles just at a different speed tier, I think. Would have been nice for his team, because then it opens up a tier 2 slot for him to take something else a little bit more valuable there, like maybe a more valuable fire type or ground type or whatever that was open at that time. But yeah.
Right.
What about like a Girder low tier for a defog option in tier 4, and then a ground type? The only ground types left are Mudsdale and Runerigus,
which are both super good ground types. I'm surprised they're still open.
Actually, yeah, dropping Mienshao and Wishcash for Rune and Girder actually sounds like a pretty solid swap.
At that point, his team is slow, but it's good at being slow.
It's still weak to flying and ground though, so like that doesn't. That's why I also like the Skarmory pick, because that patches up those two weaknesses incredibly.
Skarmory is taken at this point though.
Yeah, but Rogers has Skarmory, and I feel like Rogers would appreciate a Scizor more than he would appreciate a Skarmory, and I feel like Grum would appreciate a Skarmory on this team.
Maybe.
All right,
We're tearing apart a lot of teams. I'm so scared when we get to mine.
Dude,
I'm just gonna go quiet.
Our team is so bad.
This draft was hard. This is the hardest draft I think I've done.
Yeah, I mean it's every team's gonna have weaknesses in this.
Because it's like I told KJ, I don't think the issue was drafting 10 Pokemon. I think the issue was having 14 teams in a limited decks. Because you take a look at things like everybody's going to draft a Dragon, Fairy, Steel. Well, almost everybody drafts a Fairy. But like,
thanks for the shot.
I was looking at the dragons, and I think there were 17 fully evolved dragons in Galar, and out of those 17, like, you have 5 really good ones, and then all the other, like, there's obvious tiers inside the dragons, right? So you have some people with Dragapult and some people with Flapple. Like, it's very, very difficult whenever you have 14 teams inside limited decks, even if everybody's only drafting 10 Pokemon.
Yeah, you definitely have to play to your strengths in this kind of draft.
Or instead of having synergies, just specifically counter everyone else's team.
I wonder who did that.
Like, look at Clay's team is next.
Mm-hmm.
What are you gonna draft as your Hydreigon counter?
Dude.
Primarina. It doesn't get any electric type moves, does it? Clay, I swear, if you run Belch
Yeah, I was about
I'm
to say.
gonna be upset.
Belly drum citrus belch. That's all he needs. Is belch special? Wait, belch is special, right? I don't remember.
Belch is special, yeah.
Roselli berry with nasty plot belch.
Imagine.
I think I've seen something like that. In season 2, I played him, and he was like, I think he was sub Roselli berry, nasty plot belch for my Primarina specifically.
That's crazy.
Yeah, clear in that. I actually really don't like that set too much because it's reliant on their Primarina not just like clicking sub Calm Mind in front of you, and they actually have to attack you before you can like break.
But belch is a sound based move. It doesn't matter if they sub Calm Mind.
Yeah, but like.
But you can't use that's the thing. You can't use the belch until after they've Calm Minded 4 times.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they'll kill you through Roselli berry. Like.
All right, so let's. Clay's team is so scary, and one thing to note is that Clay, there was a sort of a mishandled situation, and Clay originally wanted Starmie. He would have had Starmie over Inteleon, and that might have made this team even scarier. But he ended up getting Excadrill. But honestly, I feel like the theme in general is that offensive ground types just win. So, like Mamoswine, Diggersby, Excadrill, like people generally just have bad matchups against them. And
Yeah.
Because of the lack of birds.
And I think the combination of Excadrill, Toxtricity, Hydreigon is going to be just so hard to prep for.
Literally, like, what do you bring? Like, you have to offensively check these.
It's so oppressive offensively. Like, even I was talking about Primarina, and he has Toxtricity to be able to deal with that as one of the Hydreigon counters. Anything that you think that you're going to be able to try to switch your counter into, like Hydreigon can Nasty Plot, Excadrill can Rapid Spin to get a speed boost, and then maybe set up a Swords Dance after that. Gallade can even Swords Dance or bulk up. Any of these things can run sub and multiple coverage moves. Like, dancing around this team is going to be almost impossible, and so you're going to have to try to match it blow for blow, but that's what this does best.
Yeah, you're playing his game from the beginning. And it's interesting, I think that, and I've said this numerous times, but the 4 of the 5 people in this call messed up in making Gallade a tier 4.
Yeah, I think we forgot about that one, to be honest.
We dropped the ball on that one when we were tiering, because Gallade, like, is just so good. And originally my plan was centered around Gallade, and then I pivoted. But yeah, Gallade is just so scary on this team.
He also has the Sandaconda strat that I was talking about the other day. Just run a Jack button Sandaconda and switch in on a U-turn, and then get Excadrill in for max sand turns and just wreck things.
I mean, Sandspit's not 100% though. That's the only.
Is it not? Every time you.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, every time you get hit, Sandspit activates.
It says when this Pokemon is hit, Sandstorm begins.
Oh, okay, yeah. I'm thinking if he gets O-code. If he gets O-code, it won't work.
Nope.
Alright, so just kill Sandaconda in one?
Yeah, you just gotta.
It still works, I'm pretty sure.
We have to test that. I don't think it does.
I also don't think it does. I think I've run into that interaction in BGC.
Yeah, I remember there being some interaction with Sandaconda that I was surprised when it didn't work. And if it wasn't that it doesn't always work, then it was the fact that if it dies, it doesn't work. But yeah, this team is just outright scary.
Good job, Clay. Good team.
He also was very smart in saving his Toxtricity pick, which we didn't talk about, but he basically saved his Toxtricity pick until very late draft, where...
I know about it because him and I were talking about after he got sniped of Starmie, him and I started planning out his draft a little bit better and a little bit more. And like, Toxtricity was one of those mons. He was like, he basically said, I'm taking this, nobody else does, and Tago's not going to be able to counterpick it because I'm going to take it so late.
That's what he thought.
Yeah. Now I don't see any glaring holes with this team because it's just going to be able to keep so much offensive pressure on that.
Yeah, and I will say he's got one of the better defensive Pokemon in this format in Weezing. I think Weezingauer is such a solid defensive option for any team.
I think it would be really Excadrill week if he didn't have Excadrill.
Yeah, he said the same thing. Yep.
Does that mean he's very Alola Trio week? Should Tago pick up Alola Trio?
No, it's specifically Mold Breaker Earthquake.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, so what you're saying is he's banded Druddigon week.
Sure.
We'll see how
Let's
that
go with
happens. See how that works. What were you saying, Lambo?
Gorgeist is such a good low tier mon. Its typing is really good with its bulk, and it can invalidate like a lot of top tier threats. Like when I drafted Keldeo because Keldeo is a really good end game win con with like Calm Mind and all, but a lot of teams have a decent Keldeo counter. Like Gorgeist is a tier 4 that just shuts down Keldeo.
Yeah.
And
You can.
yeah, Walls a lot. Go ahead. Sorry, my bad.
No. I'm sorry. I was also gonna say like you can pick the Gourgeist that fits the speed tier that you need for the game too, which is a really cool added feature of it.
Right. Yeah, didn't even think of that. I hope he brings the little one versus me. That one dies a lot faster.
All right, shall we move on to the next team?
Let's do it.
Celestial.
So this team, in my opinion, got much better per the free agent transactions. I think he picked up a lot of things that rounded off his cores very nicely. For sure.
Yeah, from what Polo was saying, Celestial apparently got sniped on a lot of picks. I know I sniped him on Wigglytuff.
He wanted Hydreigon.
I also sniped him on Diggersby. I don't remember what else he wanted.
I don't know, but I know he picked up Braviary, Gloom, Scrafty, and Vaporeon in the grace period.
Mhm.
And I think Vaporeon is an interesting option for this team. I don't necessarily love it in electric terrain, but at the same time, like, it's still just a very good mon.
Yeah, I think, and I mean we've said it before. I think where he messed up were how he took the order he took his picks in. Because he took Necrozma, Pincurchin for his first 2 picks. Actually, no, he took Marowak, Pincurchin, and then Necrozma. Which Marowak, I would say I could see there because it's a pretty high value tier 2. I would say at the point in the draft that he's at, if he saw Marowak made it to him there, I probably wouldn't have been worried about it making it back to him because he only has 4 more teams. So that's 8 more picks until it gets back to him, right? And I don't see Alola and Marowak going in those 8 picks a lot of times unless people are just really, really sure that they're gonna have a Trick Room option on their team. Because like Alola and Marowak is scary if it comes in on the right thing, but also it's just super slow. So you're able to put pressure on it even with things that are weak against it a lot of the times.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, what I will say is, and this is a perfect, like, I had Coco last season. Playing against Lambo's Alolan Marowak completely just, like, invalidated Coco. And honestly, what I will say there is he had in mind that he was taking electric spam. He took one of the best counters to electric spam off the board immediately. And I think that was something that made a lot of sense for him.
Raichu can just surf that boy anyway.
Well, yeah.
I feel like Marowak is too heavily relied on as a defensive option for this team.
It's his best stealth rocker. He's got Necrozma, but like,
but it's also like his best. It's his like only electric switch in. Well, I guess besides like Pincurchin, and then it's the only thing that can take a U-turn well, other than Braviary. Like everything else is either Weaker just doesn't take U-turns or volt switches very well. So I feel like pivoting around this team is going to be hard for him to play against.
His team is definitely very, very, very frail, and he doesn't have a great, like, he has Vaporeon, I guess, as a defensive pivot, but like KJ said, in electric terrain, I don't think you really want Vaporeon to be your defensive pivot. I don't know. I think there's still some more holes in this team that he probably needs to address. One being, I personally think he should have prioritized taking one of the better ground types instead of taking Alolan Marowak at that point. Just because I feel like ground types are more consistent as electric type counters. You can always pick up, like, if he's worried about Alolan Marowak, you can pick up something to deal with that. But there's a plethora of ground types that you're gonna have to worry about dealing with.
What about if he would have taken like Drill there and then got rid of not taking Sandslash? I personally don't like Alolan Sandslash. I think it's a very bad mon.
I think it's a bad mon even in Hail.
Yeah, I think it's a bad mon in Hail. I like this. It's one of my least favorite mons in draft that normally get drafted. Like, I see people draft it and I'm just like, I don't understand why. It's a rapid spin.
Sandslash fits better on this team than Alolan Sandslash does.
I agree. I think regular Sandslash is much better fit here.
And tier lower. I didn't realize Alolan Sandslash is tier 4. I think it's bad. I'd put it in tier 5.
I think it's there because of the hail, the slush rush option. I think is why it was put there.
Is there a hail setter? No automatic hail setter, but I guess you click hail on Vaporeon. Who else gets it?
I don't know. I feel like he doesn't bring Sandslash at all. I feel like it's just.
I mean, you look at Sandslash and you think that, like, I feel like he would have liked a defensive steel type on this team. But you look at Sandslash just thinking it shares weaknesses with Pincurchin, Marowak, and Raichu. It dies to like a Mach Punch, and he doesn't really have great switch-ins to fighting types. I mean, like Gloom and I guess Marowak, but a lot of fighting types do get knockoff coverage from Marowak.
Honestly, the fire type switch-ins aren't great either.
Vaporeon's pretty good at fire type switching.
Yeah, that's the one. Like Vaporeon and Marowak are switching into fire type attack. Like, typically, if you're running fire for like, you run a fire type coverage move, you generally are going to most likely have coverage for at least one of those two mons.
I'm looking at this team thinking if you're able to deal with Vaporeon, you don't have to worry about anything else defensively. Because, like, Vaporeon on this team, his recovery, like, I think he gets recover on Necrozma, Roost on Braviary, Triage, Draining Kisses, and stuff with Comfy. But, like, Wish is I think Wish is like his most reliable way to get things recovered back up, but at the same time, he doesn't have a ton of things. The same thing with Poppy's team. Like, he doesn't have a ton of things that can come in and take a Wish back up to full. I mean, at least on switch-ins. Vaporeon getting flip turn does help it a lot, but having to hard switch into something, or if Vaporeon's faster than something, then it's kind of rough.
Yeah, I think only Necrozma, really.
One thing I don't like is that the two main offensive threats are Raichu and Necrozma. They share weaknesses. That's one thing that I'm not a huge fan of.
Yeah.
But I also
Marowak.
Yeah, and Marowak. They also that is another shared weakness. I think yeah, that's definitely tough. I mean, it's funny because I know he wanted Hydreigon, and I think that would have fit really well here.
Yeah, because his only two ghost switch-ins are Braviary and Scrafty, neither of which are like incredible ghost switch-ins. Like, I feel like he's gonna have to run very bulky everything to at least switch around. Either that or just like play a switchless game where he just tries to full speed ahead overroll his opponent, but I don't think his team is really suited for that.
And I think the other kind of unfortunate thing is because he used 4 transactions in the grace period, so he actually only has 4 left because he had to dip into one of his regular season transactions.
Right.
I think the biggest thing is with the 10-mon draft that we had. I know his original plan was like double terrain with psychic terrain, electric terrain.
I think that was a plan.
Or it was a plan at one point. I just think having that kind of, I'm gonna say gimmick, because I do feel like Surge Surfing Raichu is a gimmick. It can catch a lot of teams up. It can definitely run through a lot of teams, but I still would call it a gimmick. Having that kind of gimmick inside of a 10 Pokemon draft just leaves your team open to holes in so many other places. Because every slot in a 10-mon draft, I feel like is a very important slot and needs to fit some kind of niche. And I think just taking the electric spam in a 10-mon draft, to me, wasn't the greatest move.
Yeah, dude. And Raichu is literally so weak. Abandoned Mammoth Ice Shard does at least 70%, 85 max.
Yeah, priority is going to hurt this team a lot.
Because we look at like we saw Rez's team last night in Pearl, and he's kind of got the electric spam there too. And just seeing what that one extra slot allowed him to take in other places, really, it kind of showed me that having this, even the one less slot trying to take that kind of electric spam can really hurt your other, because you're automatically taking up 2 slots, right? So then you kind of want to, you have 8 slots to fit everything into a niche, and it just like it hurt him getting sniped on those things that you need that fit a niche. In limited decks, there's not a lot of things that fill the same niche as something else. So whenever he did get sniped, it just hurt the rest of his plan, and it all kind of trickled down from there.
Yeah.
You guys want to move on?
Yeah. Got Pokecraft's team. This was like one of those teams that I think is pretty solid, and I don't think many of us were looking at it too much when he was building it.
It's very bulky.
Mm-hmm.
And it's very good at being bulky.
Yep.
Yeah.
He has webs to sort of help out things like Terrakion, make sure that doesn't have to be scarved. Crocodile as well. Yeah. This team is scary.
I think
He
my
has
biggest
one of the best Mammal Swine counters, so he's one person who doesn't lose to it.
What's that, Avalug?
Yeah.
yeah. I feel like what would frustrate me the most out of using this team if it was my team is the reliance of breaking with Aegislash Terrakion. And
Crocodile at that
like,
point.
Like, yeah, you kind of have to rely on Crocodile and even like Behem, because there are so many good like defensive pivots on this team, but just not enough offensive presence, in my opinion. So he's going to have to play a long game against a lot of teams, and definitely have a focus on setting hazards and forcing the opponent to be chipped throughout the game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, his defensive synergies are the strongest thing about his team, but at the same time, his offensive synergies are kind of lacking, I think.
Right, definitely. Yeah, I mean, Tangrowth, Mantine, Avalug, that is awful to break. I mean, even just Mantine and Tangrowth, that is a really difficult duo to crack down on.
Mm-hmm.
I think he might have benefited from, like, there's not many offensive tier 5s, but I think taking Licky Licky in that, or Lickitung in that tier 5 slot, I think it's a little bit too passive for what he should have taken for this team.
Agree.
I think it's there for Heal Bell.
Maybe, yeah. But I don't know. I feel like there's other things that get Heal Bell for the team.
I think Slurpuff gets Heal Bell, doesn't it?
Yeah, Slurpuff I know gets aromatherapy. I'm pretty sure, like 99% sure it gets aromatherapy. Same thing with Tangrowth. I think Tangrowth gets aromatherapy.
Yeah, I think something more offensive in that tier 5 slot could be useful. Something that could be like a late game cleaner or a breaker. me see. I'm scrolling through the tier 5s. There aren't that many good options. To be honest.
Yeah, the tier 5s thinned out very quickly.
Wishy-washy could actually be offensive and good. Am I the
Yeah.
only one who thinks that?
I've just found in my past of using wishy-washy that it's very underwhelming, even offensively. Like you look at its stats and you're like, oh, it's gonna be sick, and then like it just doesn't get it done.
Yeah, it only has 75% of its HP.
I'm not gonna lie, I'm looking at Behem on this team, and I'm wondering what are you gonna be doing with that Pokecraft? I wanna see Behem used. I really do.
Yeah, Behem's actually very powerful.
Yeah.
Like it's actually very good offensively. It's just super slow. Like speed tiers is another thing that this kind of struggles with.
Yeah, his
That
team
is
is
a weird
very
drop-off.
slow.
Yeah.
Goes from
And my-
145 to 108 to 92 to 72.
I think that's why webs were so important for him. Like I looked at this team and I was like, if he doesn't when I was looking at fairies, I was thinking he probably drafts Slurpuff or a Bombi because he needs webs on this team.
Bubba says he has mini free Wi-Fi, so that means his team is fire.
I mean, Lickitung is incredibly thick, so like breaking Lickitung with an EVLA is difficult.
Yeah, 90, 70, 75.
Yeah.
Many-
Not much to skip. I cannot scoff at that.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Man, I hate Mantine as a Mon, personally. That is like,
You using it or playing against it?
I hate using it.
I wish he
Playing
would have.
against it,
Wish he would have covered up that electric type weakness a little bit better.
like, I don't know, I just look at Mantine and I just think momentum killer. Like, Mantine is the epitome to me of like, my plan is to set up on this thing.
Yeah. You got to bring Haze Mantine.
Yeah, and that's kind of tough. And I mean, I think about something like Como, for example. It taunts Mantine, you don't get the haze, and then it sets up.
And you don't get toxic, and like, what's it
Yeah.
gonna do? Are they running Hurricane Mantine?
And even still, then they have to hit a raw Hurricane.
Right.
And
So
if you're
toxic.
if you're Lumberry, like,
Well, if you're
so my thought
taunting-
is like, if you're Lumberry Como, like, I know this is a very specific scenario, but if you're Lumberry Como taunt and like DD and 2 coverage moves, you kind of do, like, you can kind of say you're going to do well against this team.
Yeah, as long as you don't get like unlucky with the Scald Burn
Yep.
or something.
Exactly.
Definitely DD, Taunt, Lum, Como could go in here.
Also, I just want to say shout out to the person who reset
3,000
3,409
times.
I think that's Bobo.
facility.
Is that Bobo? I don't know who I Love Dogs is.
Still, they reset 3,409 times for
Bro,
shiny Pokemon Crystal Celebi. I respect that.
bro,
For that.
14. Congratulations, my bro.
Yeah, that
That's it.
that is definitely. Oof, man, I don't know. I could not do it. I don't have the patience.
I remember I started shiny hunting Excadrill and Sword and Shield, and I got to like 109 eggs, and I was like, I don't want to do this anymore.
And bro, I like the Gen 2 shinies a lot more than some of the newer ones because they used to just be a palette swap. And some of the Gen 2 shinies looked really, really cool because they just got a really sick palette. But like now they are specifically designed. Yeah, if you just scroll through some of the Gen 2 shinies, a lot of them look better.
Imagine-
than the newer ones.
Imagine specifically designing shinies and still making ugly ones.
I know, right?
Like, who thought
So-
making Garchomp just a little darker was a good idea?
Yeah, I hate the ones that barely change.
Gengar.
Celebi's
Gengar.
really, really shiny.
Well, Gengar was a palette swap at that point.
Ugh.
All right, y'all ready to talk about King Rock and his PAX team?
Always ready to talk about King Rock.
Or yes,
Wise. Shite. How do you say this again? Shite?
Like,
Skoogiville.
I think it's
Scoop,
Scoople.
scoop, kill, save lives.
stabilized.
Interesting.
It was
I
funny.
remember he was the game of the weeks one time last season, and I just avoided saying that word, and he commented it out. He was like, "It was very nice how you just avoided saying that word." He said, "I only watched this video to watch you say that word, and then you didn't say it."
It's like where he's from in some random place in like I don't even know where.
The Midwest.
His own little corner of the
I
world.
think it's like Pennsylvania or something like that.
Yeah. It's like
Dude, that sounded kind of sus. Not gonna lie.
I don't even know what KG said.
What sounded sus, Bubba?
I guess saying that that's wherever he's from. I don't know.
I know, but his draft is very scary, and I will say at the end, I think the later picks kind of scared me less, but his early picks were very, very scary picks. He went off with Jirachi Togekiss, and then he picked up Haxorus, and I think Vikavolt was his next pick.
Isn't it funny that he picks Jirachi and Togekiss, and then the first 3 letters of the next Pokemon he drafts?
He did that on
Well,
purpose.
he did that purposely. He said he wanted to.
That's actually super funny. It's also funny that they make a Dream Core. But like, why does everybody always draft Jirachi and Togekiss?
I don't know. I don't.
It's like you get the ground immunity to cover Jirachi.
as well.
Yeah.
They're a good
And you
fairy
can be a
fairy steel core.
Yeah, but I feel like in people's head they're like, yeah, Serene Grace, baby.
Yeah, that's what I thought, to be honest, when I picked it up.
Well, if your flinch win condition is reliant on one mon, there's a low chance that you're actually able to just flinch through the entire team. But then when you can send out the next one, it increases your odds.
I will
They
never
do-
draft. I will never draft Togekiss Jirachi again. I will
They-
never draft that combo again.
It's an okay core, but like,
Not for me.
yeah.
It's weird because
but-
I have Togekiss in another league, and I was telling KJ the other day, I think I've used Dazzling Gleam on Togekiss more than I've used Air Slash.
I started clicking Dazzling Gleam and Psyshock.
But mine's not because I'm scared of him as Air Slash. It's just because I run Wish sets a lot more than what I run Scarf sets, and Dazzling Gleam usually just gives me more coverage.
Bro, I'm always clicking Flamethrower with Togekiss.
It does get really good coverage.
It does. It's a very good mon.
Yes, like outside of flinching. Like if you are reliant on flinching, that I don't think that is the way to play Togekiss.
I agree.
Yeah.
I think the problem that I have with it is like there are going to definitely be times if you're using Togekiss where a flinch can win you the game and not flinching can lose you the game, regardless of whether or not you're playing to the hacks or not. And that situation is really frustrating, regardless of the scenario.
And then you just miss Air Slash altogether, so it doesn't matter.
But it is in your favor, at the least.
It is.
With that
but-
anti-prodigy.
yeah, I don't know. I've had worse luck with Togekiss than most people, so.
I'll tell you, man, though, Pangoro Webs is actually probably the scariest thing on this to me. Because Pangoro is like, it's got Urshifu coverage before Urshifu was a thing, and very little ever resists Dark plus fighting. That just runs through teams. And I believe it also gets Scrappy as well, so I can just, doesn't even have to predict, it can just click. Close combat.
The other thing is you don't really even need webs. You have Trick Room Teleport with Claydol. And Trick Room Teleport with Claydol gets you Vikavolt or Pangoro in if you need it for free.
Yeah, I feel like I'm more afraid of Pangoro.
Or even Turtonator at that point.
I don't know about Turtonator. That's
Yeah,
the mon on this. That's the mon on this team. I'm like,
Bro, I told you, you Shell Smash in Trick Room, and you're still slower.
that's probably true, but
I feel like if somebody sets up a Trick Room and then teleports and they switch into a Turtonator, I'm like breathing a sigh of relief.
That's a win. That is a win. If I'm
I'm
playing
like-
this team and he teleports into Pangoro, or it teleports into Pangoro or Vikavolt, I'm like, crap, I lose. If he teleports into Turtonator, I'm like, all right, we got a chance. We can
yeah.
we can deal with this.
Shaded
The
says,
hazard?
Shaded says only Torkoal can shell smash and be slower.
The hazard control on this team is also crazy. Like you have Quillfish, Lycanroc, Vikavolt, Jirachi, Claydol.
As,
Does
as
Turtonator get any hazards that it
no,
can set up?
no.
I don't think so.
But
Those
so you
are-
have those are hazard setters.
Yeah, 5 hazard setters, and then
You have-
removers got Togekiss, Claydol, and Turtonator. which
Yeah,
is
I
really
think
good.
the value of having spinners with webs is so useful. Like
Yeah.
that's so high. I mean, and
I think
getting
it's
webs up is just going to be very important for this team, I think.
very good that he has 2 spinners, because I feel like a lot of the times you don't want to be running Defog on Togekiss. A lot of the times you don't even want to be running Boots on Togekiss, because Togekiss is a Pokemon that just benefits so much from other items, and he doesn't want to necessarily be getting rid of his own hazards, because I think his hazards on the opponent's side actually helps him a ton. So having those spinners to only get rid of his side is pretty important for his team specifically.
I mean, Togekiss Togekiss pressures switches too.
Mhm.
So not running Boots is fine because they don't know the item, and then it's like they run the risk of Scarf, or do they run the risk of just it being like a bulkier Life Orb variant, or like a Sub-Nasty Plot, or anything like that, like a T-Wave variant. That Togekiss has so much versatility that it being able to come in forces switches, and then you just like wish the damage off or roost the damage off, and it doesn't even matter that you took the rocks damage.
Which is why I think it's important that it's not forced into that defog rule.
All right, last 2 teams, because
Now
Yeah.
they're also the worst team in the league.
This is definitely one of the worst teams.
yeah, I gotta hop out of call in a few minutes too. But
Okay. Well, tell me all the things that are bad about my team or good about my team, and then you can leave Tago high and dry.
Corviknight Rotom is really good.
Yeah, it's funny because, and Bubba's in the chat, and he also drafted Corv Rotom. That was one of the things I looked at, and I was just like, the only tier 1s that I would really want to draft would be like, at least that I figured would fall to me, would be like Corviknight and Rotom, but I did not think that Corviknight was going to make it. So when I saw Corviknight on the board, I was just like, I have to take it. I mean, you can ask anybody. Whenever I draft, I always just suck at picking good steel types. Like I don't like any of the steel types, and I think picking a higher tier steel type for me was a big priority. So taking Corv
Right.
and then immediately grabbing Rotom, because I think Rotom's arguably the best fire type in the format, was something that I also wanted to make sure that I had.
Were you
And
excited about using Zarude?
I wasn't originally. So Zarude was one of those picks that I started looking at everything, and I was just like, wow, this fits my team really well. Like, I picked Heracross because I figured I have, like, the defensive core of Rotom Corviknight covers Heracross very well. And so I figured I'd be able to get Heracross in relatively safely, or get rid of its threats, and then be able to get Heracross in and really do damage. Espeon was more of a speed pickup and like general versatility pickup than anything. Dragalge, I really wanted the ability to set T-Spikes. I thought Dragalge was a good mon. It gave me a good special wall. It also hits incredibly hard with adaptability. I did get sniped a few times, so obviously the big hole is that I don't have a fairy type. So that's never good. I do like the speed tiers. I think I have a good number of like ground resists. I don't necessarily see anything that's like really threatening outside of very good dragon types. Like that, dragons scare me for sure.
Right. I think U-turn Volt Switch, like just Volt Turn teams are also going to give you a lot of troubles,
Mm.
because Marowak's the only thing that truly stops a Volt Switch. And if you want to go into something else, say Zerud, to take a Volt Switch and resist it, you just bring in your U-turn mon, and Zerud has to switch out versus a U-turn. And then that just lets you get in something else that threatens the next mon. So there's a definite problem with those kinds of teams.
Yeah, I can see that. I can definitely see that. Yeah, it was definitely tough. I mean, I look at my tier 2s and I think that I could potentially make some changes. I mean, there's the obvious like 2 psychic fairies that are sitting in tier 2 that are still available, and I think those would be nice. I think that would be giving up a lot of speed. So I think if I went one of them, I'd probably have to go Hatterene. And then the other problem I have is the lack of a dark type at that point, or the lack of a grass type. I'm not loving that. So
I will say with your lack of a fairy, you have one of the better defensive Pokemon to deal with most dragon types in Corviknight. Because you think about dragon types versus steel types, they get a lot of coverage for them. Some get ground, some get fighting, and then the special ones will get fire. Whereas Corviknight is immune to ground, neutral to fighting. It still is it's scared of High Dragon and a Specs Dragapult, but outside of those 2 things, it can handle the rest of the dragon types pretty well.
Also, Shaded pointed out in the chat, he told me to go Zoroark and Heracross, but I'm a coward and didn't do it. Yeah, I am, in fact, a coward and will not draft Zoroark.
Join the gimmicky dark type club.
I don't know. Even though Zerud has the 4x weakness to U-turn, I will say 4x weakness to U-turn because like most bug type moves aren't being clicked. I do think that it is just naturally bulky.
I'm just waiting for somebody to skitter smack Zerud now.
Its stats are really good, but its
stats are
ability leaves something to be desired.
I agree. I completely agree. But it has very good stats, and it has a like I said, I want to see how I can build with it, and I think that's going to be one of the bigger things. But I think if I do make changes, it might be for something like a Zoroark or something like that, and maybe dropping Espeon dropping like Zerud and Espeon for a dark type in tier 3, and then a one of the psychic fairies in tier 2. Like I think Hatterene could be really interesting. It pairs pretty well with Dragalge. It gives me that Trick Room option for both Dragalge and Marowak. Heracross is another, like, Heracross is one of those things I don't want to necessarily drop because it's just, it pressures so much. But I do have the fighting type in Hitmontop, and that there's definitely room to sort of move things around there.
I think it's nice to cover Dragalge that nothing wants to click a ground move on your team for the most part. Like, you have Heracross as a resist, you have Corviknight, Rotom Heat, Zerud, and Haunter as well. And the only weaknesses are like Dragalge, Dreadnought, which honestly, if you bring Dreadnought to very many games, I'll be very surprised.
Really?
I know that it's your only rocker, but like, it's just not.
I've always thought Dreadnought was just bad.
I don't know.
It's good in rain.
It is good in rain, but you don't really like fighting types already.
That's fair. That's very fair.
Really, I don't. Wait, why do you say he doesn't like fighting types?
Espeon is gonna set. Just that, like, it does. I don't know. Maybe it's just an instinct, I guess. It looks like it hits a few things super effectively that he wants to use defensively, and he doesn't have any great resist to it.
I only have one, other than Dreadnought, I have one fighting type weakness.
Yeah, Dreadnought, Zerud, and then
I have an immunity.
Immune, Intimidate, and then Dragalge resist, Espeon resist, Heracross resist, and Corviknight.
It's neutral.
It's neutral.
Corviknight resists every attack ever.
But I will point this out. And how many fighting type moves does things like Espeon want to take? You know, and
That's
like,
fair.
and Heracross also does resist fighting type moves. But if you're ever running some kind of like Guts Heracross set or something, you're already getting all that residual damage from Flame Orb. You're lowering your defenses with close combat, and it's just like, I can see where Togo's coming from. If a couple certain things are gone, fighting type spam against this team is difficult to deal with.
See, it's probably worth noting. Originally, I wanted Sylveon
Yeah.
specifically to cover things like the Heracross Guts. Like, I wanted to be able to Wish Pass into it, and that is one of the things I think I'm seriously missing. I think
Sylveon would be really good on this team.
Yeah, I think like Sylveon over Zarude, and then like I would have done a little bit of things differently with the later tier picks. But
I think you should have drafted Sylveon second.
I was worried that Rotom Heat wasn't going to make it back, and I don't think it would.
I don't think it would have either.
Really? You think somebody would have drafted Rotom Heat?
I do. I really do.
I
Because
probably would have drafted. No, I had Incineroar. Never mind.
I think-
Rotom Heat was on the planet one time.
yeah, I think there were a few people that mentioned that they were interested in Rotom, and I did tell them like if Corviknight makes it to me, I'm probably taking Corviknight Rotom Heat, and
Got it.
I think Rotom Heat is just highly regarded as one of the best fire types, and I don't know if you saw like the scramble, but a lot of people were scrambling for fire types late.
Do I even have a fire type on my team?
You have Salazzle, don't you?
No, he doesn't. He does not have a fire type.
Yeah,
So maybe
we
that's
don't-
why you weren't. Maybe that's why you didn't see it, because a lot of people were scrambling for fire types.
Yeah, there were a couple of things that I like didn't have, and I was like, okay, I'm just going to play a more aggressive game.
I think that was very important in drafting, though. Realizing what you were going to be weak to, and just saying, you know what, I'm just gonna be weak to this thing. I need to focus on another place. Was pretty important.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a severe lack of multiple types, given that it's Galar with 14 people.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And yeah, you just got to take your losses and pick it up. And you have to have something that's strong enough on your team that, despite your weaknesses, you can kind of rely on those strengths to win the game. So you can just kind of play to those end game win cons.
Oh, Terrakion is drafted. Rip. Wait, I don't think I played Pokecraft. Okay, we're good. Don't have to play Terrakion.
Rigged.
Yeah.
Rigged.
Rock is a type that is very annoying to this team outside of Marowak and Hitmontop, but
That's rigged.
they can get worn down.
I want to recount.
You want to recount?
Yes.
Avoiding his bad matchups.
I gotta drop off, but thanks for having me.
See you,
Of course.
Lambo.
Thank you for joining.
See you, man.
So we ready
Yeah,
to talk bad about Togo's team?
Yeah, let's go ahead. I already feel bad about my team. I don't need to hear any more about it.
So I've said Togo's team to me is the scariest team in the draft. His team is bulky with Mandibuzz, Prim, which were the first two things he took. Then you add Arcanine on top of that. Then you add things like Rhyperior. Flygon is not a bad bulky option. You cover your ice type weaknesses pretty well. And then you also have Passimian, which is a very good low tier fighting, Vileplume. And then I said very early draft, the Alakazam on this team scared me the most out of the tier ones. And then you got Alakazam. This team to me is just very, very well rounded. The speed tiers are all covered nice. Typings are all covered nicely. Even Mawile as a low tier steel type isn't horrible with Intimidate. So
yeah, I think this team is actually extremely scary.
I wasn't sure that I liked it. Maybe it was just me looking at my first couple matchups and worrying about what I was bringing. But when I first started drafting, I was just like, okay, I'm gonna take Mandibuzz because I need something to resist Ghosts because Zank has Dragapult. And then I was just like, well, what pairs really nicely with Mandibuzz? And my original plan was gonna be Aegislash, but Pokecraft took that. So Prim Mandibuzz was my first 2 pickup, and then I was just gonna try to take stuff that countered players' best Pokemon along the way and fit in stuff that I needed as well. But by the end of the draft, I had Mawile as my only Stealth Rock setter, and I was just like, shit, how do I fix this? So it was Rhyperior, Mawile, and then I swapped Passimian out instead of Araquanid. But I still think that not having like spikes or toxic spikes is going to make it difficult for my team to wear down opponents' teams. And I think I'm also kind of reliant on heavy duty boots with Mandibuzz, with Arcanine, with Rotom Frost being like some of my defensive options.
Yeah, I do see you kind of being locked into a more defensive Arcanine a lot of the weeks. And I can kind of see where you're struggling. You would struggle to kind of break other bulkier teams. Like I feel like Pokecraft against you is a difficult matchup. But it goes the other way. I think it's also a difficult matchup for him because he kind of has the same issue that you do. But like your 2 teams facing each other it's going to be a very long and annoying game of just chipping and chipping and chipping down until somebody finally gets the advantage. I will say where you did do well in that aspect is you do have the momentum moves to help you out with that, because you have U-turn on Mandibuzz, U-turn on Flygon, Volt Switch on Rotom, Flip Turn on Prim, Teleport on Arcanine, U-turn on Passimian. And I didn't say Teleport on Alakazam because you're never going to bring that, but I mean you do have it.
We'll see. Maybe I bring it and teleport in on your Incineroar.
Teleport into it?
Teleport out, sorry. Teleport out on your Incineroar switching.
That's fine.
But yeah, I don't really have a great Incineroar answer.
And Mandibuzz does pretty well. Don't want to get knocked off, but I mean, you also have Rhyperior. Like,
doesn't really want to take a Will-O-Wisp, but maybe you don't want Incineroar chip down.
Yeah. And it's like, I don't like your team just because you have Vileplume, and Vileplume's just a bad Pokemon.
What?
Whoa.
I thought getting Vileplume was like one of the saving graces.
Nah, Vileplume is sucky. Vileplume uses Sleep Powder, and that's sucky.
No strength step only.
Vileplume generally doesn't run Sleep Powder. It's gonna run it against you because it's, but
I think the Grass Poisons, it's just a really, really good typing. The reason I thought definitely needed it was because I wanted to counter Zeraora on Lambo's team. And so I originally had a Moongus there. But just being able to Sleep Powder things that can switch in and otherwise Sludge Bomb the grass types is really valuable for it, I think.
Yeah.
Aromatherapy as well was me trying to be a cleric just in case like a sub Calm Mind Primarina gets toxic and I need to get that off of it. Will-O-Wisp on a few of my physical attackers.
Yeah, I think obviously I was joking whenever I said Vileplume was bad. Vileplume is definitely a very good Pokemon, and I think Aromatherapy for your team is really good because getting Toxics off of Mandibuzz and Prim and even Arcanine are really good for your team. It just improves the longevity of those 3 Pokemon. And then if you look at your team, your real special attackers are Alakazam and Prim, and then everything else is more physical. Flygon, Rhyperior, Rotom is special, but you're running like Blizzard if you're running anything, and that's not fantastic. And then you got Passimian, so a lot of your offensive threats are mostly physical. So I think having that aromatherapy option is definitely very, very important for your team.
see, I don't necessarily think that most of his threats are physical. Like, I look at this team and I think, like, Primarina, Zam. I think Primarina and Zam are, like, the bigger threats on this team. I think, like, he has Passimian, but Passimian, in my opinion, often misses, like, Okos and is better used as, like, a pivot. Like, it just needs a little bit more, in my opinion. And then, or it's going to be slower than a lot of threats. There are a lot of things that could threaten it. Like, Rhyperior, while nice, like, usually it's longevity only, like, if you're hitting it with, like, an actual super effective move, like...
But basically what I'm saying is, if somebody was able to just get Will-O-Wisp on a couple Pokemon, then they know, like, not having to worry about the physical attackers takes a lot away from the special attackers, if that makes any sense. So him having that aromatherapy option means that somebody can't just Will-O-Wisp Flygon and then be like, okay, I don't have to worry about Flygon anymore, I'll just deal with Prim and Alakazam now. Whereas if he can't heal that off, then having to worry about Flygon helps out Alakazam and Prim a lot.
I agree, I think.
I don't know. I also don't think Will-O-Wisp is super spammable because you have Arcanine. Like, Arcanine is still an immunity. Or it still can be an immunity. And on the other side, it's a complete deterrent because of Flash Fire. So, I don't know. I don't see people spamming Will-O-Wisp against the team.
Either, because, like, burning Manabus is not as good as toxic Manabus on Prim.
Yeah, exactly. You want to toxic more things on this team than you want to burn, in my opinion. Like, I don't think the physical versus special thing is real. Like, I agree with you that aromatherapy is nice, but I think it's for different reasons. Like, I think toxic is way more spammable on this team. Like, when you look at it, Primarina's a mon that comes in, and if you let it sit on the field, it just kills everything. And toxicing it is very, very good. Arcanine's another mon that if you toxic it, like, you're limiting its ability to really be able to come in on things, cycle intimidate, stuff like that. Mandibuzz as well, like I don't know. What I see is his, and Shaded mentioned this, like, quality versus quantity. Yes, there are technically more physical threats, but I think the things that aren't manageable on this team for like opponents are the special threats. The threat of special Flygon is there. You have arguably the scariest special attacker in the format in Primarina, and you have Alakazam, which has always been just an offensive juggernaut.
Yeah, I think Zam is really good on this team, honestly. Because with Nextplot, you also break, like, bulky teams.
Mm-hmm.
I think if anything, I would want a more offensive fighting type, maybe. I don't know, something that hits just a little hard. In past, and I mean, I haven't had Passimian in a draft. It's only been with, like, mocks and stuff like that. But every time I've used Passimian, I've always wished it just hit a little harder.
And that's weird to me, because whenever I had Passimian, I loved Passimian. Passimian is, to me, a very, very good value fighting type.
I do love Passimian.
I think
it's really nice.
It's kind of like I told Polo whenever he had Passimian. I think if you're expecting Passimian to come in and just claim kills, you're gonna be let down, because I don't think that's what Passimian does best. I think what Passimian is gonna do on this team is claim a lot of chip for things like Primarina or Alakazam or even Flygon to come in and clean up the rest.
Rhyperior is also really good.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
I think Passimian is there to set you up for the late game and not just sweep, you know?
But I feel like it's very, the reason why I feel that is because, like Shaded just said, the 80 speed tier is nice, but the fact that you then almost always have to run Jolly or Scarf just takes away from it. Like, Passimian misses kills having to run Jolly, and Jolly Band isn't gonna do it, because if you need Gunk Shot to threaten fairies, and of course you have one of the scariest fairies in the format in Primarina, but I think Jolly Band isn't super great when in a slower format, when every team has something that'll be able to deal with it.
But
No, because I don't feel like Pessimian needs to wall break here with
Yeah.
Rhyperia, to be
Nope.
honest.
that's what I'm saying. I don't think Pessimian's role on this team is to pick up KOs, at least not from full.
I don't know. I guess I can't see, like, there's no trick room option on this team really, and I don't see how you can depend on a base 40 mon and a base 60 mon to be breaking for you. Like, that to me seems like you're gonna be in that to me seems like it's gonna be very difficult, because yes, Rhyperior, like, Solid Rock is a great ability, but it does have two pretty commonly special weaknesses with base 55 special defense. I like Rhyperior as a mon, but it lives a hit. Like, it's going to take a water move or a grass move, and then you're going to be threatened out.
But I mean, to be fair, you are claiming a lot of kills with Primarina and UGL, and you have not set Trick Room once. And then the thing with Rhyperior on this team is you have Mandibuzz as a grass type switch in, you've got Prim as a water type switch in, you've got Vileplume as a grass and water type switch in. Like, he has the switch ins to cover Rhyperior. You've also got, like, who in their right mind is going to go for an electric type move on Rhyperior? You know, like, so Mandibuzz and Prim are kind of safe switch ins for that.
But they are going to click a grass move. That's my point. Is, like, you're going to click a grass move, and you look at this, and a lot of good special attackers do get grass coverage. I personally don't like the combination of Rhyperior, Primarina as breakers. That's just me.
I can see that, but the other thing that I really like actually is that his switch-ins with Manabus and Primarina have momentum with flip turn and U-turn.
Mhm.
And if he goes to Vileplume, he can sleep once too, and like 4 switches. So I think I can see your point, but I think it's
covered
like,
very well.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, I'm again, this, like, we're nitpicking very good teams. That's
Yeah.
just my nitpick. Like, I still think this is one of, like, the top 3 or 4 teams in the entire thing.
Yeah,
But
I agree.
If I was going to compare this to, say, like, Clay's team, that would be my nitpick, is that this team is going to depend on things to break that either very frail or have very similar weaknesses.
And see, that's weird to me, because I think Rhyperior breaks Clay's team very well. If Inteleon's not on the field, Rhyperior comes in and breaks Clay's team very well.
It may or may not be coming to my game versus Clay. I also may or may not have picked it up specifically to counter Clay's team while also getting an extra rocker.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, Rhyperior versus Clay's team is super good as long as Inteleon's not on the field. And Inteleon has to come in revenge. Inteleon cannot come in and take a hit.
No, I agree. I don't know. I think it'll be really interesting. I can't say anything but good things about Tago as a player. So, like, I think he's going to be able to pilot his team. I think he's using Primarina. Like,
I
would
wish I had Wish. I wish I wished.
I wished.
That's true.
Imagine if Prim got Wish. That'd be stupid.
I wish I could Wish. Because Wish passing would be really nice. But I honestly don't know what I would swap out, and I don't think that there are any good Wish passers available at this point.
Yeah, I think if Umbreon was on the board, you'd have to swap Mandy for another flying type plus Umbreon. Maybe would be the best thing for the team, but I think Umbreon's taken still.
I think
So,
prioritizing something like Wigglytuff in tier 5 and then taking a different steel type somewhere might have been good.
I was considering that, but I couldn't take both Flygon and Wigglytuff from Rick. I'm gonna be honest. Couldn't do that much. Couldn't do him dirty that
to
hard.
be honest though, would you have taken Wigglytuff before round 5?
Before you, maybe. I wasn't even considering it when you said that you wanted it.
Wigglytuff was so important for me. I'm glad you didn't take it.
Man, I should have taken it. I told him
140 base HP wishes is kind of good.
Yeah.
Tago pick up free Wi-Fi. Absolutely not, Bubba. Normal types in 10-1 format, not great.
Especially
The best Wish
passive.
passer. That's a strong statement.
Nope. Can I ban Bubba? Is that allowed?
Yo, but free Wi-Fi. Ban Bubba, free Wi-Fi. Yeah, like Shaded said, yeah, we're gonna be doing Diamond on Wednesday and Pearl Thursday. So that will
Which masters would be available?
be happening.
I was considering Kangaskhan in tier 5. But
So just
Kangaskhan
worse
is picked up now.
worse free Wi-Fi.
Worse free Wi-Fi.
Okay, so we are at the end. Maybe we go in order and just kind of talk about what team we think is the best.
I think it's Tagos. I would say
It's between Targos and Clays for me because
Yeah.
I really like Clays team. It's
Blaze
great.
is very high. I'm biased, but I like my team a lot.
Same. I like my
Your
team
is
too.
very good. I actually like Slowking is so good. Slowking is one of the best tier 2s. Lucario is a heavily underrated tier 2. You have really good defensive and offensive presence with just like Gengar, Lucario, Diggersby as your offensive side, and then Incineroar, Wigglytuff, Slowking, Druddigon on your defensive side.
Yo, don't forget my boy Rotom Fan. Rotom Fan is way better than it gets credit for, I think.
Yeah, tier 4 Rotom Fan was a steal, I think.
It's very good. It's not something that I like jumps out at me as either an offensive or defensive mon, and kind of one who can fill either niche.
Yeah, I was gonna
so
say it can be either. That's the
Yeah.
nice part about it. Like
that's the same thing with Serena. It can be either defensive or offensive, which is really nice for it.
Rotom Fan is my budget Paraflinch kiss.
Jesus, why?
Rick is definitely top 4 teams, I think, for me. I think Lambo's team is also really solid.
Yeah, I think we messed up in general, letting some of the better players get some of the best teams, because I think the best 2 teams are Lambos and Clays, personally.
I mean, you say let as though they wouldn't have gotten a good team even if you had taken some of the other mons that
That's
they
a good
wanted,
point.
you know?
I blame you. You should have been trying to snipe them, not count.
Sniping them doesn't work.
And see, it's weird because I look at Lambo's team thinking Memos or Aura scare me, and like I guess even Drampa. I don't know. I'm not the most scared of Lambo's team as a team. With Lambo having it, obviously it's scary, but
I don't know. I think that there's a lot of mons that just like low key wreak havoc. Like Bronzong is one of those mons. Like I personally cannot use Bronzong as a mon, but it's one of those mons that if you're not well prepared for it, it can just kind of win a matchup because it's just so hard to get rid of. Porygon is the same way. Like, and that is a mon I am comfortable with. Like Porygon has won me many of games just because people didn't have ways to deal with it. And I think adding that on top of the like Zero Aura Mamoswine combo, and then having the versatility of Decidueye, the fact that Keldeo can sort of late game kill things, and Drampa just kind of being there and being able to just kind of eat up a hit and then get into berserk range, roost off the damage, and then just kill things is crazy.
Yeah, it's good. I think my favorite team is actually Zanks, because Dragapult is the single most broken Pokemon in the format by a large margin, in my opinion. I think it's probably better than Volcarona, even though Volcarona
It's
is
totally
like
better
really
than Volcarona.
What's that?
I think Dragapult is totally better than Volcarona. I think Volcarona is like kind of one-dimensional, while Dragapult like also benefits the team too. Because Volcarona, you have to build it on Volcarona, while Dragapult helps your team with U-turn and shit.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so what I'm saying is what I'm hearing is ban Dragapult.
Yeah, maybe next season.
Next season, maybe.
mid-season. We get a mid-season ban.
Mid-season.
Yeah,
I don't know about that one, guys.
no. Yeah, Volcarona does one thing better than Dragapult does, which is just set up and sweep. But Dragapult has screens, it has Dragon Dance, has Hex, has all the status moves except for Toxic. Like, can be physical, can be special, has so much speed that it will be outspeeding almost everything on your opponent's team, including some Scarfers.
Yeah.
It's just so ridiculous. And you have a team that's so well built around it and supports it, and you get up hazards to support the sweep. I think XCloud is honestly a fine breaker to be able to just click Boom Burst and bait in the steel types that Dragapult would have a problem breaking on its own. If it was a Dragon Dance set, use Salazzle to poison the steel types or to threaten poison on things. It's a very, very good team in my opinion.
Salazzle's a very good poison and fire type to have beside Dragapult if you're not running, because if you're not running special, you don't want to have to tech on a Fire Blast to a physical Dragapult. So having Salazzle there to deal with those is very good.
Yeah, Zang's my favorite.
Yeah.
Number 2 is probably Clay. Number 3 is probably. I'd say it's a tie in 3 for both Rick and Lambo's team in my eyes.
I hate my team. This isn't good.
I'm just ready. I've pinpointed 3 teams to bring Nasty Plot Lucario to. I'm ready for it.
This man. I have a feeling one of them is mine.
Dude, I'm just. I will say I feel like I'm gonna have fun with Lucario. I told KJ last night I'm hoping Lucario plays similarly to how Scizor plays offensively. I mean, it doesn't get pivoting, but I feel like offensively it kind of does around the same things that Scizor does, and I really enjoyed using Scizor, so I'm hoping Lucario kind of fits that for me. Which I think it will, but we'll have to see.
You're not allowed to bring priority versus my team. I won't bring sleep versus yours. You can't bring priority.
No, did you saw what I told you had to do the other day, right? You have to you now have to worry seed my Pokemon on Switch in. Then you can sleep powder. You can sleep powder all you want to at that point, but you have to worry seed me first.
Okay. You can't bring priority, and I will not click sleep moves unless I have already clicked worry seed.
I feel like no, there's gotta be something else you can't do. You can't bring Prem.
Why?
That's
What is that? How is that equivalent of a trade?
How is taking away my huge power stab quick attack a trade to not clicking a sleep move?
Because you don't just lose a Pokemon right out. I think that's fair.
Did we add in that sleep clause of any Pokemon that's asleep is just considered dead?
No, but that's the way that you think. So does it? Does it really matter if it's a clause or not?
No.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think are we good to wrap up then?
We're good to wrap up.
Cool. All right. So yeah, for everybody that's in the chat, we will be back with another stream. I believe Wednesday around the same time, so around noon. And yeah, I think that's just about it.
Go subscribe to me on YouTube.
Yeah, go. We have a bunch of YouTubers in the call, so
if you're watching this on YouTube, they should all be in the description. If they're not, yell at me in the comments.
Yeah, sounds good. Good job plugging everything, Rick.
Cool.
All right. Well, thanks for tuning in, and we'll catch you on Wednesday.
Peace out.
Bye.